Hi everybody, welcome back once again to Winning with Sketchup. Adam here with you. In this episode, we are going to take a look at the Flowify plugin. Now, this is a free plugin that you can download out of the Sketchucation plugin store, and you can go and grab that. That's from Caul, C-A-U-L, is the user's name who created Flowify. And I'm just pull it up here and make sure that it's listed under the same name here, under authors. I know that's his YouTube channel. So let's just do a search here, and we are going to go to Flowify, and there's Flowify, and there's Caul. So go ahead and download that. It's a free plugin. It says it's SketchUp's equivalent to Rhino's flow along surf command. And what Flowify is it's very similar to, if you're familiar with Shapebender. And what Shapebender does is it takes some reference line and allows you to bend a piece of geometry kind of based on the principles of that line, that reference that you're using. Now, Flowify does a very similar thing the way it divides up your geometry and then deforms it to a target. So you have a source and a target, but it does it over a surface and not just linear. So this really opens up some possibilities and allows us to essentially deform or bend geometry in more than two axes. So as an example here, I'm going to draw out a curve here. And we're going to take this, we're going to lift this up here. I'm going to make this into a group, and we're going to rotate this 180 degrees. And let's take this back to 0. And let's just grab this bottom one here, move it forward, explode that top one. And we can kind of look at this from the side, maybe move this forward just a little bit more. I'm going to grab both of those, and let's use Curvy Loft here. And let's switch our spline method here to the Bezier curve option. It should give us a little more. And then we can see these various options here. So maybe let's go orthogonal elliptical curve option. And you can play with the segments here and get some nice smoothing there. You can adjust the interpolation. And let's just go ahead and accept that. Turn on hidden geometry. We can see we have a fairly dense quad mesh here, but it is quads overall. Very evenly distributed, which is what we want with Flowify. Flowify depends on quads as its surface. And it needs those quads in order to you remember we're working with a target and a reference. So it's going to use those quads on the reference mesh, divide up the geometry, and project it onto the target mesh. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's just move this over here, or actually let me just delete those original curves. I'm just going to delete those. So all we have here is the Curvy Loft mesh. And what we want to do now, there's a couple things we can do. We can get in here and just draw a rectangle here. Let's reverse that face. And we want to, this is going to be our reference surface, and this is going to be our target surface. And we want to attach them somehow. So we want to make sure that our reference surface is a group and our target surface is a group, and now we need to create some edges which will connect the target and the reference. So we're going to connect the corners that we want to represent. So essentially, if we would pull this up, saying this is the top, the reference here, this is the top left, and this is the top right, and on the target this is the top left and the top right. So if we would attach, let's say, from here to here, from here to here, then this would essentially be this mesh turned 90 degrees, if that makes sense. So now we can go ahead, we need to group our connectors. So we have those grouped. We have our reference grouped and our target grouped. Now what we need to do is group all of them together. So now we have one big group that contains 3 subgroups. You can see that there. Now, to check if this is working, we can get in here to extensions, go down to Flowify, go to Impose Grid. And we can see that that went and took this grid, took that subdivision amount, and transferred it over to this surface here. Now, I'm going to get in here. I'm going to explode that, explode these. I'm going to actually scale this way down here. Now I'm going to group that again, get out. And let's select this and do that again. Let's go to Flowify, go down to Cut. And not Cut, Impose Grid. Let's go to Impose Grid. And we can see that the scale of our reference plane is not relevant necessarily. It doesn't, in this particular type of situation, it doesn't need to be exactly the same size as our target. So let me just undo that there. If we did want them to be the exact same size, we could also get in here, and a little trick you can use is to use the Quad Face Tools plugin. And there's this flatten option here. So this will unwrap based on UV mapping and flatten out this mesh. You can see that there. So if we would select all of these faces here and we would run that tool, what we want to do is go pick an edge, and it's going to give us an indicator. We can see that green pop up, and we just click that green, and it's going to give us a surface here that is the exact same size basically as this. This is just now flattened out. So we could use that as our surface here. Now I do find that sometimes we'll have some issues with this these triangulated edges here. So we can get in there and remove that in Quad Face Tools as well, and just use this button here. And now we're back to the grid that we need. You can get out of here, delete those edges, and I'm going to actually grab this here and cut that, get out and paste that in, because these both need to be in separate groups. They can't be nested inside of each other. So now we just need to connect that corner to that corner, and select both of our connectors, make those a group, and now inside of this group here we should have 3 inner groups. You can go up to Entity Info, select all, we should see 3 groups, and if we're wired correctly we should be able to just draw something on this surface in 3D, or 2D actually works as well. Select it all, make it a group, and now if we select that group plus the Flowify group and go down to Flowify and run it, if it was right, then this would be projected, but it's giving us an issue and saying the target grid and projected grid have different topologies for whatever reason. So I was running into this before as well, and I think this might be rotated, which might be the issue here. And let me just grab this here, try to rotate this, and now let's explode these here, and I just want to connect that end there. Let's try this again, make those into a group, get out, select those, select that, run Flowify, and now it's going to work. So that was the issue. I just had this turned the wrong way there, so we have a different division count in the length and the width, and they need to match up. So the other option we could have done there in that situation, if we undo that back, is just get in here and we could clean this. I just run cleanup, or I just use Fix-It 101, and that'll go through, clean that, and now we can go ahead of time and go to Flowify and go to Impose Grid, and that'll put the grid on there correctly. Or you don't need to do that. You can just run Flowify and it'll automatically impose the grid all at once. So you see it'll impose the grid, take our mesh, or take our geometry here, and take it from the reference and put it on the target kind of in a paint by numbers method. So exactly where it's sitting here, the exact number of grids across, it's going to line that up and it's going to cut that. And we can see that it's cutting that right along these quads. So whatever our quad count is how dense this mesh is that it's sending over here. So if that makes sense, we can see we have the exact same cuts. And we can get in there, we could clean that up. Turn off hidden geometry there. We can see that it's kind of bent there to that. We can also get in here, and if we would go Flowify cut, it's going to divide up this geometry based on what's at the reference image, and it's going to actually cut in those quad edges there along the sides as well. So let's and it also puts that in its own, you can see it puts that in its own group separate from the mesh here, and doesn't, or the geometry, and doesn't replace that. So the other option here with Flowify is to, remember, we're selecting our reference target connector group and our geometry. Make sure we have both of those selected. Go to Flowify, and we have this option here, Flowify without cut. Now what that's going to do is it's going to send this across, and it's going to put it in here, and it's only going to make a diagonal cut here. And it's going to try to best fit this onto this surface. You can kind of see how that works. So what I want to do here now, let's think about creating some type of a curtain wall, let's say. And let's say our curtain wall was a let's say 4 across and 4 panels this way and 4 panels this way. So what we would do, let's just take our box here and bring it over. I'm just going to make a copy, and let's go 3x, and let's grab these. Actually, I want to make sure these are instances. Right now they're solid groups, so I'm just going to use TomTom's selection toys and go right click, group copies, convert into components. Now they'll all be component instances, and now I can select all of those, which I have a keyboard shortcut set up to, or you can right click, go to instances, select all, and now we can move a copy down this way, go 3x, and let's say this is our panel grid here. So let's move this over to the corner there. Let's scale this up to here. Scale this in over here. Might have to turn on X-ray mode. And now let's scale them from the center just a little bit so they're tucked in here. We don't want them all the way to the edge. If you do need them all the way to the edge, what you're going to have to do is go in and create a kind of a buffer around the outside. So you're going to create some padding, is what they call it. So you'd go through and take this row, let's say, and you're going to want to move a copy of that over. And you're going to take that row and move a copy of that over. Now the problem is it needs to match here. So you would need to do the same thing around here to have those extras. So you really want to kind of, if you need this to be exactly lined up, you want to make this a little bit bigger and this a little bit bigger. And then you can scale those in, because when you're all the way up to the edge, sometimes things go haywire. So let's grab all of these and grab our mesh here and go, let's go to extensions and run Flowify. And that's going to go through and calculate, divide this up, and drop that onto that surface. You can see what that looks like there. Select all of that, deselect that. Oops, deselect. And let's run cleanup on that. And turn off hidden geometry. And we can see what we got there. And this is divided up into sections here. So now let's go in, and these are all instances, so let's sort of create kind of a window panel here. So let's drop this out and maybe get in here to the center. And let's just, I'm going to do a ring selection. I'm going to insert a loop here, and then I'm going to convert this into a face. And let's reverse that. So now that face is sitting right in the center. I'll throw in a transparent material there. So now let's grab all of those and grab, you see we have 16 components. Let's grab our Flowify surface and reference here. Go into Flowify, and let's just do the regular Flowify here. And that'll go through, and again it's deforming, because remember we have this turn the wrong direction, so this is actually longer than this is tall. So it's going through, and it's actually kind of moving this over, just like I said, similar to what Shape Bender does in just one or kind of two axes. This is doing in all three, but it's doing it based on this grid here. So let's grab all of these. Let's just deselect this here. Let's move that over. And we can, I'm just going to run Fix It 101 here and do a softening. You can see what that looks like. Okay, so now let's do the same thing. I'm going to select all of those, select our target reference group here with the connectors, and now let's do Flowify without cut, and let's look at the difference here. And that's going to go a lot faster just because there's not the need for all of the intersections that have to go on here, which really takes up a lot of time. So let's grab all of those, deselect this, let's move that over. And here we see that where these are really deformed, so the rails and everything in between are actually cut and bent along this surface. So they're divided up. Everywhere there's a subdivision here from Curvy Loft, and kind of transfer that over to this panel. Whereas here, we did the Flowify without cut, and all that did was, it did do a division here down the center. And so these aren't all planar necessarily. We can see that this is kind of sitting a little bit skewed here, but you know, in certain curtain wall instances, this would be a lot more realistic as far as what the end result I'm trying to get, depending on how large the area is. So let's just run cleanup on this, and didn't have anything to remove. Okay, so now let's go back, and just want to show how we can do this also in multiple steps. So I'm going to grab this inner piece of glass here, and I'm going to cut that. So I made it a group, I cut that, so now that's missing. I'm going to paste that back into place here. And I'm just going to move this here and grab those, convert that into instances. I'm going to move that. So now we have all of this glass here. You can see we have 16 components of that are all separate. Maybe I'll have a little bit of thickness to this. And let's say we wanted to try to keep things a little more solid overall. We could do this in two sections here. So I'll grab those, grab our reference target group, and let's do Flowify here. Let that go through and process. It'll take the longer or the more dense this quad mesh is that we've created here, the longer this is going to take, obviously, because the more it needs to calculate. So, but there we go. And let's grab those, deselect this, let's move those over. And let's just make sure we remember how far we're moving that. Let's say 30 feet here. Take a look at that. And we can see now these are all solids. So this is the benefit of doing it this way. Now we have all solid geometry here. Let's go through, try to run cleanup. Sometimes it'll break the solid, especially in the validity check. And one of them is, or a couple of them are not solid here. Well, looks like most of them are. Yep, there's the one. For whatever reason, this one here is not solid. You could go in and some issues there. Let me try to run maybe solid solver. And sure, it's a solid now, but it completely destroyed it. Try to run fix it 101, and out of all three, that one solved it. So it got us back to a solid. So I really love that little plugin. It's really fast. So I'm going to run that over all of these actually, and just cleaned up a little bit more and kept everything solid. And now I'll just go down and just turn up the soften edges here. So you can see we have a really nice framing here overall. Now let's go back to our glass. Grab all of those and let's get in here and run Flowify again. Oops. Select all of these, deselect here, and move that over. And if we remember, it was 30 feet. It should fit right in there. And let's run fix it 101. And just turn on the soften there. So now every one of these windows is also a solid group. So we should be able to select all of these and have 32 solids. So it really opens up the possibilities of some things we can pull off here, allowing us to wrap over a surface. And it's not really dependent on the quads within a surface like any, if we wanted to use maybe a paneling method where we were going to panel each quad here. We can do this and create whatever we want down here and then add this to the surface. So we could even go in here a little bit further, add some, say we wanted to add some detail here, come across that, and we just switch this over to select just face. Pull this up here. So whatever, we're adding some detail here. And we could go and continue to add on base and just do that here on our reference image or reference mesh. And we have that selected. Now we can select this. We can run Flowify. Just going to use a shortcut for that. And that'll go ahead and just take those 3 detail pieces and deform them over the surface there. And let's just grab those 3, move them over. Remember, we move 30 feet. Clean them up. You can see that they're sitting in there beautifully. So there's a lot more things we could get into with Flowify. There's a lot more to go over and things to do. But I think this was a good just kind of overview. I think the videos out there on Flowify tend to overcomplicate. People think it's a very difficult plugin, but it's very simple. You just need to make sure that whatever you are working with is quads. You need to make sure that your reference and target group is created properly. And if it's not, you'll get the errors telling you what's wrong, and you just have to fix that. Just want to make sure these corners are being connected properly. You want to make sure that this grid here and this grid here are matched up. And if not, then you can always just remove everything from this grid here and let Flowify rebuild it, and you won't have any problems. So we'll get into some more detail using Flowify with some circular things, maybe some lathing operations and things like that. There's a really good tutorial out there on YouTube using Flowify to create a tire, and you might want to check that out. And that one is from Chip Walters. You can see that here. So it's a really good tutorial on creating this tire using Flowify. And Call has a couple on there as well. But I'm going to get into some other methods of using Flowify and some more creative ways to go about doing that. So I hope that was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions, and everybody have a great day. We'll see you in the next video.